Hello, Namaskar. This is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. Our lead story tonight is China. It's a sinking ship. Investors are leaving. Chinese investors are leaving. And Xi Jinping has no one but himself to blame for this. We'll bring you the numbers. In the US, Nikki Haley is out of the Republican race. So it will be Donald Trump against Joe Biden, a 2020 rematch. We'll look at how the odds are stacked. On the moon, Russia and China have a plan. They want to set up a nuclear power plant. This is not from a Hollywood movie. We have the details. Also in the news, does America have the political will to ban TikTok? We ask because they're introducing yet another bill to do it. What caused the tech outage in Meta and why is the White House investigating it? Why is Haiti's Prime Minister trapped out of his own country? What's India's new underwater metro? Why the Turkish economy is down in the dumps despite, or should I say because of President Erdogan's intervention? What do we know about the insurgency in Mozambique that has displaced 100,000 people, and why the Arctic will have no ice in a decade, and how does it affect your life? All this and more coming up. The headlines first. The Indian Navy commissions its new base in the Lakshadweep Islands. INS Jatayu at Minicoy is India's second naval base in the Lakshadweep. It will help enhance New Delhi's reach in the strategically important Indian Ocean region. Indian benchmark indices hit record high. The Sensex ends above the 74,000 mark for the first time. Stocks in banking, IT and consumer durables lead the rally. The Nifty also hits a lifetime high of 22,474. No such fortune for Egypt though. The crisis-hit country devalues its currency. The Egyptian pound plunges to a record low. Cairo will now let its currency trade freely, a key demand of the International Monetary Fund. Egypt has been in talks with the IMF to get more aid. Tensions escalate in the South China Sea. Philippine President Marcos calls China's actions alarming. On Tuesday, Philippine and Chinese vessels collided in the disputed waters. It's the latest confrontation between the two countries. China claims almost the entire waterway. France and Moldova to sign defense deal on Thursday. It comes amid rising tensions between Moldova and pro-Russian separatists. These separatists are from Transnistria, Moldova's breakaway region. Last week, they asked Moscow for protection. And Somalia gains full membership of the East African Community, becoming its 8th member. In 2012, it had applied to join the bloc. The EAC is one of the fastest growing regional economic groups in the world. How do you know that a ship is sinking? Well, when it starts taking water, yes, but also when the crew jumps overboard. And that's China in a nutshell for you. In the last few decades, it was a shiny new cruise liner. Everyone wanted a place on board. But now this vessel is sinking, so the race is on to abandon the ship. Look at the latest headline from Beijing. Chinese investors rush abroad. Why? Because they're losing confidence in the domestic market. We have numbers too. Imagine you're a big investor in China, maybe a mutual fund or bank or insurance company. You can't randomly buy assets abroad. There is a channel that you must use. It's called the QDII, the Qualified Domestic Institutional Investor Program, QDII. All offshore investments are channeled through this. And the sales of these funds are up. By how much? 50% compared to last year. At the same time, investments in Chinese mutual funds are down by almost 35%. Let me simplify that for you. There's a 50% rise in Chinese money going abroad. There's also a 35% drop in money going into Chinese equity markets. The question is why? Because Chinese assets are not giving returns. Look at their currency, yuan. Last year, $1 was equal to 6.9 yuan. Now it's 7.2 yuan. That's almost 4% down in 1 year. Chinese stocks are a similar story, almost 2.6% down in 6 months. And finally, you have Chinese treasury bonds. The 30-year ones are giving record low returns. just 2.4%. Compare that to US Treasury bonds. They're giving almost 4.3% returns. So put yourself in the shoes of a Chinese investor. Would you be happy with these numbers, with these returns? Chances are no. Listen to one such investor based in Shanghai, I'm quoting, "We feel a pressing need from our wealthy clients to diversify asset allocation. After 20 years of high growth and high returns, the Chinese economy faces a slowdown in the foreseeable future." This is the sentiment. This is the trend. What is China doing about it? They do have some controls here because the foreign investment scheme has a cap. There is a limit on how much money can be parked abroad. Right now, it's $166 billion, but investors are quite close to hitting that cap. So it's a very hot market right now. On one hand, a race to invest abroad. On the other, China's investment quotas. It's like an unstoppable force meeting an immovable object, a scary prospect. The root cause here is China's economy. It's a shadow of its former self. The Chinese economy opened up back in 1978. Since then, their average GDP growth was 9%. In some years, it hit 13%. But look at the latest numbers. China grew by just 5.3% in 2023. For this year, the projection is again 5%. Even that is being questioned by experts. So much so that Chinese officials are having to defend it.
This goal aligns with the annual requirements of the 14th five-year plan and is fundamentally matched with the potential for economic growth, representing a positive and achievable target with concerted effort.
He says it's achievable. So did China's Prime Minister this week, in fact. He promised to transform China's economy. But investors are not convinced. We showed you how Chinese investors are taking money out. So can you imagine what foreign investors are doing? They're staying away. Last year, China's foreign investments hit a 30-year low. They got just $33 billion in FDI. Compare that to other Asian economies. India got $33 billion in just 6 months. Vietnam attracted almost $37 billion. So the investors have made their choice. They clearly think that China is not the best bet. What can Xi Jinping do about it? Many would say he is the problem. Xi inherited a robust Chinese economy. He was elected president in 2013. Back then, China was growing at almost 8%. But look at his decisions since then. He picked fights with neighbors. He tried to expand into the South China Sea, splurged on the Belt and Road project, took on the United States, covered up a deadly pandemic, smothered Hong Kong's global appeal, and then implemented a disastrous zero-COVID policy. Add to that China's systemic problems, like an aging population, the lack of freedoms, and of course the one-party rule. It makes you wonder, is China's time up? Did Xi Jinping reveal his intentions too early? The economic data suggests, yes, he did. In the United States, it was Super Tuesday, a big day in the election calendar. 15 states and 1 US territory vote on a single day. That's why it's called Super Tuesday. Now, Super Tuesday sets the tempo for the battle ahead. And it's claimed a victim today. That's Nikki Haley. She's out of the presidential race officially. Nikki Haley has suspended her campaign. Interestingly, she did not endorse Donald Trump when she did it. Instead, she asked him to earn her trust.
I have always been a conservative Republican and always supported the Republican nominee. But on this question, as she did on so many others, Margaret Thatcher provided some good advice when she said, quote, "Never just follow the crowd. Always make up your own mind." It is now up to Donald Trump to earn the votes of those in our party and beyond it who did not support him. And I hope he does that. At its best, politics is about bringing people into your cause, not turning them away. And our conservative cause badly needs more people.
Nikki Haley launched her campaign last year. It was right after Donald Trump. The first few months were a slump. She was polling in single digits. Then the first debate happened. She started gaining traction. She did well in these debates. She beat the likes of Ron DeSantis and Vivek Ramaswamy. Haley was a moderate candidate, no radical views, sticking to status quo. It appealed to plenty of Republicans, especially those who did not support Donald Trump. They rallied behind her. Then donors took notice. They backed her campaign. Basically, she was seen as an alternative to Donald Trump, but not by the voters. She kept losing in the primaries. 24 primaries have been held so far. Nikki Haley won just 2 of them. She lost even in her home state, South Carolina. Soon her luck with the donors too ran out. America has something called super PACs, political action committees. They get campaign funds. These super PACs left Haley's campaign, so she lost funding. There were doubts about how long she could continue. Today, she's put those doubts to rest. Nikki Haley is out, which leaves the Republicans with just Donald Trump. He's the only Republican candidate now, and that means he will go against Joe Biden.
Well, thank you very much. They call it Super Tuesday for a reason. This is a big one. And they tell me, the pundits and otherwise, that there's never been one like this. There's never been anything so conclusive. This was an amazing night, an amazing day. It's been an incredible period of time in our country's history.
It's a 2020 rematch, Trump versus Biden. It may not be the choice that America wanted, but it's the choice that they're getting. For Trump, this is just the first hurdle he's crossed. He has no opponents. But does he have the money? Because elections are an expensive spectacle. And in the US, billions are spent on campaigning. If you can't raise the money, you're out. Now you may ask, why will Trump not have the money? The former president is, after all, a billionaire. He enjoys strong Republican support, so raising money should not be a problem for him. But it is, because Donald Trump faces 91 felony counts. He's been indicted in 4 cases. 2024 is not a good year for him. Trump was ordered to pay $355 million by a New York court. If you add interests, that's $454 million. Then there's an $83 million defamation case, plus the bills of his lawyers. So Trump is burning money, and he's doing it every day. By some accounts, he owes $500 million in just court penalties. That can't be good for anyone, no matter how rich. It's especially bad for a candidate in an election year. So Donald Trump needs funding, which explains why he met Elon Musk a few days ago. The meeting took place in Florida. It was over the weekend. We don't know the exact details, but all reports mention one thing. Trump wants Musk to fund his campaign. Will the Tesla CEO do it? It's not clear yet. Musk is one of the richest people in the world. His net worth is around $200 billion. So he does have the means to do it. Plus, Elon Musk does not like Joe Biden. He has spoken against the US president in the past. He says defeating Biden is a priority. But does that make him a Trump ally? Well, not yet. Neither Musk nor Trump have commented on this. But you never know with these two men. Surprises are their forte. Right now, Biden has the financial advantage. He is the incumbent. He's getting most of the funding. Biden raised $42 million in January. Reports suggest his re-election campaign has around $130 million in the bank. So he does have an advantage, at least for now. But if Musk joins the Trump campaign, he joins hands with Trump, it could more than level the playing field. Now brace yourself, because this next story sounds like a mad science project, something you would expect from a Bond villain. Russia and China want to install a nuclear plant on the moon. Who's saying this? The head of Russia's space agency. He's also given a timeline. He wants to install and deliver this plant by 2035. First, the obvious question, why? A nuclear plant on Earth is dangerous enough. Why do you need one on the moon? For energy. In 2021, Russia and China signed an agreement. They decided to build a lunar research station, basically a moon base. Russia and China wanted to build it. And these bases will need electricity to run. But options are few. The obvious one is solar energy. Fit some panels on the base and store the sun's energy. But there's a problem. The nights on the moon last up to 14 days. That's 14 days with no sunlight, which is why scientists are seeking other options. In this case, nuclear energy. That answers the why of this Bond project. Now let's look at the how. How do you build a nuclear plant on the moon? The plan is to deliver the reactor to the lunar surface. Russia says robots will then install it. Apparently, all the technical concerns have been addressed except one: how to cool the reactor. Nuclear plants require vast amounts of water. We're talking about billions of gallons per year. That's the kind of water they need. This water is used to cool the reactors. It must then be filtered and stored. Again, there's a problem. The moon doesn't have that much water. Researchers have found traces and molecules, but nowhere near billions of gallons of water. Until that problem is solved, a nuclear-powered moon colony is a pipe dream. But the idea itself is not really bad. In fact, it's actually been tried before, though the scale was much smaller. Let me take you back to 1969. The Apollo 12 mission landed 2 astronauts on the moon. They carried a nuclear generator with them. Solar panels were not reliable enough, so NASA settled on a nuclear generator. From all accounts, it worked pretty well. It gave enough power to conduct all the tests. So nuclear energy has been used on the moon before, not as a plant, but as a generator. And NASA is looking to expand it. They too have plans for a long-term lunar base to settle humans on the moon for 10 years. And what's their power source? The same as Russia, a nuclear reactor. In 2022, NASA gave 3 contracts to private companies. They were asked to design the lunar reactors. Last month, the first phase of that plan was wrapped up. NASA wants 2 things from the reactor. 1, it should weigh under 6 tons. And 2, it must produce 40 kilowatts, which is enough to power more than 30 households. Again, we don't know how NASA will cool it down. We also don't know how this reactor will be taken to the moon. But we do know one thing: space exploration is entering a nuclear age. The first space race was all about reaching somewhere, like the Earth's orbit, or the moon, or Mars. This new race is about staying there. And for that, you need more powerful energy sources. Nuclear power could be the answer. Just think about it. What if you want to explore beyond the solar system or set up a base on Mars? Then solar panels will not help you. But nuclear energy can. It can produce more power over longer periods of time. Of course, there are risks here too. What happens if your nuclear payload crashes on the moon? Like what happened to Russia last year? The spacecraft was called Luna 25. It was the first Russian lunar mission in 47 years and it failed. The Luna 25 lost control and crashed on the moon. So we need to be mindful of these risks. Also, nuclear reactors could be a slippery slope. What if nuclear weapons are next? Recently, the US accused Russia of trying to place nukes in space. President Putin rejected those claims. But what if someone else actually does it? So nuclear energy is a double-edged sword. It could unlock the next chapter in space exploration. It could also trigger a nuclear space race. Now let's talk about America and TikTok. It's a love-hate relationship. Americans love TikTok. American politicians, not so much. They're trying to ban TikTok again. 19 lawmakers have introduced a bill. They're sending a message to ByteDance. ByteDance is the parent company of TikTok, and I have a quote: "Break up with the Chinese Communist Party or lose access to your American users." This is from Mike Gallagher, a Republican lawmaker. Democrats also support this bill, so there is bipartisan backing. The bill has been introduced in the US Congress. What does it say? It's quite straightforward. This bill puts ByteDance on notice. If this bill is passed, the company will get 165 days. Within this time frame, 165 days, ByteDance must sell TikTok. The idea is to separate the 2 entities, ByteDance and TikTok. If TikTok wants to operate in the US, it will have to do so without ByteDance, because ByteDance is a Chinese company. Its headquarters are in Beijing. So how does it operate in the United States? There's a different corporate entity which manages TikTok's business in the US. Its CEO is a man called Shu Chu. He is a citizen of Singapore. But this corporate structure does not change one simple fact. TikTok is a Chinese app controlled by a Chinese company, funded or founded by Chinese entrepreneurs. Here's another fact. In 2021, a new investor came into ByteDance, and that is the Chinese government. The government of China, it acquired 1% in ByteDance. Again, that's the Chinese parent of TikTok. This acquisition also gave Beijing a seat on the board of ByteDance. Now, TikTok says this does not affect its overseas business in any way, but that's hard to buy. If the Communist Party sits in the boardroom of ByteDance, it is bound to make lawmakers in the US uncomfortable. So they have brought in this new bill. It gives ByteDance a simple choice: sell off TikTok's US business or lose access to American users. If ByteDance fails to follow through, it won't be able to distribute the app. TikTok will be blocked from all app stores and internet platforms. So the threat of a ban is real. But what does the company say? It says this bill tramples on the rights of Americans. And the app commands a vast user base in the US, some 150 million people. The US is TikTok's biggest market by user base, 150 million users. Earlier, the biggest market was India. But India banned the app in 2020. Do you know how many people use TikTok in India then? More than 200 million. And these were the active users, meaning they opened the app every day. So it was a sizable number, 200 million, more than what the US has. But it did not stop India from banning TikTok. So the question is, will the US be next? Well, they've tried it before. The US has tried banning TikTok in the past. Since 2020, we've seen a series of false starts. Donald Trump was the first to try. Did not work. 2 years later, in 2022, Joe Biden signed a bill. He banned TikTok on all government devices. Now, this was a selective ban imposed only on US government employees using a government-issued device. TikTok was banned there. In plain numbers, this ban impacted nearly 4 million employees. And what was the reason given for this ban? Data security concerns. That's what the US cited. That's why the ban, data security concerns. Interestingly, the same Joe Biden joined TikTok last month. The US president is on the Chinese app. What for? Election campaigning. The national security concerns notwithstanding.
The administration still has concerns, security concerns about TikTok, even though the campaign has now joined it.
Again, I cannot speak, nor will I speak for the campaign. I can't do that or their decisions. Nothing's changed about the national security concerns.
That's the problem with the US. Its approach towards TikTok is confusing. The president cannot seem to make up his mind. Same with the lawmakers. They can't seem to decide what to do with TikTok. Last year, they tried a ban. They introduced a bill to block the app. TikTok lobbied hard. The bill was stalled and eventually dead. So will America succeed this time? Will it find the political will to beat TikTok? Guess we'll have to wait and see. Yesterday was a hard day for Meta. Its apps were down. They weren't working. I'm talking about Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. It was a global outage. It took place around 9 PM IST. If you missed it, chances are you were busy watching Vantage. But if your doom scrolling was affected, you do know this. This outage cost Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg $3 billion. So your problems can wait. But what caused this outage? And why is the White House now looking into it? Our next report gets you the answers.
Imagine this: no cat reels, relationship status is stuck in It's Complicated, influencers in panic, and just one message flashing on your screens. Sorry, something went wrong. Try again. Some people turned to ancient texts, also known as books. Others had to engage in face-to-face conversations, without emojis and GIFs. Does that sound like a dystopian landscape? Well, that was the case for Meta yesterday. Its apps were down. I'm talking about Instagram, Facebook, and yes, even Threads. It was a global outage, so it wasn't just on your phone. It was happening across the globe. The problem began around 3:30 p.m. GMT, that's 9 p.m. India time. If you didn't notice it, maybe you were busy watching Vantage.
Hello, namaskar. This is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma.
The outage lasted for around 90 minutes. You couldn't log into Facebook. Instagram Reels were down, so doom scrolling was out of the window. Which is why people turned to X, formerly known as Twitter. The app had a field day. Elon Musk was obviously enjoying it. He put out a post. It said, "If you're reading this post, it's because our servers are working." Musk was clearly having fun, and so was the rest of social media. So it was all fun and games for everyone except Mark Zuckerberg. He's the Meta CEO, and reports suggest the outage hit him hard. He lost around $3 billion. So if you thought you were the hardest hit because you couldn't put up Reels, think again. However, Zuckerberg is still maintaining his position as the fourth richest man, so I guess he'll survive. Which begs us to ask, what exactly was the problem? Meta called it a technical issue. Sounds like any other IT guy. Meta says they tried to resolve the issue as fast as possible. However, it wasn't just Meta that was having a bad day. Google too saw some outages. There were issues with some logins, minor ones compared to Meta, but overall, it wasn't a great day for big tech. The outages coincided with Super Tuesday. Millions of Americans were voting, which is why the White House couldn't ignore it. They waded into the issue, and this is what they had to say. "We are aware of the incident, and at this time, we are not aware of any specific election nexus or any specific malicious cyber activity. These outages are not new. In 2021, Meta apps faced a similar worldwide outage. That was for longer. Apps like Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp were down. So this isn't its first rodeo. Chances are it won't be the last either. Just goes to show, no matter how advanced technology gets, we are still, at times, left at the mercy of the internet gods."
Now let's turn our attention to Haiti. The Caribbean nation is being overrun. Armed gangs are besieging the capital, Port-au-Prince. The police force is on the back foot. Thousands of residents are fleeing the violence. But where is the government? The Prime Minister is trapped outside the country. His name is Ariel Henry. He tried to land in Haiti but could not. The international airport is under attack. The gangs have been targeting it. They forced Prime Minister Henry to divert his flight. He tried to land in the neighboring Dominican Republic, but he was denied permission. So today he turned up in Puerto Rico and landed finally. It's utter chaos. Amid all this, an ultimatum has been issued. It comes from the spokesperson for the gangs.
If Ariel Henry doesn't step down, the country will suffer a genocide. If Ariel Henry doesn't step down, if the international community continues to support Ariel Henry, they will lead us directly into a civil war that will end in genocide.
That's Jimmy Cheridzia, better known as Barbecue. He was an elite police officer. Now he's the spokesperson for Haiti's gangs. They've joined hands, the gangs. They call themselves the Regroupement Vivre Ensemble. They're orchestrating this rampage. They've taken control of Haiti's capital. 80% of it is under their control. And now they're threatening to launch a civil war and genocide. The gangs say they have a just cause. The ouster of the unelected Prime Minister, Ariel Henry. Now, Henry is both Prime Minister and acting President. He took charge in 2021 after Haiti's last president was assassinated. In fact, let me rephrase that. Henry was put in charge by an international coalition. So he's not a democratically elected leader, yet he's been clinging to power. He keeps delaying elections and extending his unelected mandate. He was supposed to step down last month, but he's extended his rule till 2025. This has bred resentment, and Barbecue and the gangs are using that to justify their actions. But before you paint them as some Robin Hood figures, listen to this.
The armed gangs forced us to leave our homes. They destroyed our houses and we are on the streets.
I'm a motor taxi driver. I was resting. There was a burst of bullets and I was hit on the foot.
At this very moment, heavily armed bandits are storming my shop. Oh Lord, please don't let them set fire to it.
15,000 people have been displaced in the violence. That's according to the United Nations. Many of these people were already living in shelters. Now they're homeless again. Meanwhile, barbecue is not showing much remorse.
The international community, especially the United States, Canada, France and the core group will be responsible for all the people who die in Haiti.
He's happy to shift the blame to other nations while he makes videos with a gun in hand.
There's not a single gun or bullet that's manufactured in Haiti. Almost all of it comes from the United States, a lot of it directly from the port of Miami.
So the US is partly to blame for Haiti's troubles. What are they doing to make amends? They're doing what America does best, throw money at the problem. They've pledged $200 million to set up a multinational task force, but that force has not been formed yet. Meanwhile, Haiti is crumbling as we speak, and it isn't getting nearly enough help. Look at the UN's fund for Haiti. It's received only 2.5% of the required donations. Neighboring nations are also turning their backs on Haiti. Let me show you a map of the country. Haiti is on the island of Hispaniola. It shares the island with the Dominican Republic. And this neighbor is being of no help. They wash their hands of the matter, even refuse to let the Haitian Prime Minister land in their country. Dominican Republic is fortifying its border with Haiti. They do not want refugees.
We will never accept refugee camps in our country. That is out of question.
Haiti was once called the jewel of the Antilles. But now that jewel has lost its luster. The world has lost interest and it has been abandoned. Our next story comes from India. It's a big day for the state of West Bengal. Its capital, Kolkata, has received a gift today, a new metro line that's being hailed as an architectural feat. The line features a tunnel which is under a river. So the metro goes through an underwater tunnel. Now, this is a first for India. Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated the metro line today. Our next report has more.
Some would call it an engineering marvel, but for these people, this metro line is set to become a lifeline. There are a lot of firsts associated with this project. The obvious one is the 4.8-kilometer underground stretch, which runs below the surface of the Hooghly River. The metro can cross this river tunnel in just 46 seconds. Its construction happened in record time too. The river tunnel was built in just 66 days. The route also features India's deepest metro station. That's another major breakthrough. After inaugurating the line today, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi also experienced it. He took an underwater ride in the company of school students. The metro line was a necessity. It took over a decade to accomplish. The project was first conceived in 2008. Building an entire tunnel deep within the Hooghly River was the most significant hurdle. There was no other way. An elevated metro line running over the Hooghly was never an option. The area around the river is too congested. Diving into the river to build the tunnel came with its own set of challenges. The river's soil is saturated with water, so it is very soft. The architects of the project had to dig deep. They went 8 to 9 meters below the riverbed to build the river tunnel. The metro line was necessary. It links the twin cities of West Bengal, Kolkata and Howrah. Kolkata is the capital of the state, while Howrah is its main industrial hub. Thousands of people commute between these cities daily, and the existing means, like the trains, the ferries and the land routes through bridges, were getting congested. The metro will make lives easier for many travelers. It was an idea which was discussed for years, but the plan never materialized. The first proposal came up over a century ago, in 1921. It was from Sir Harley Dalrymple, a British engineer born in West Bengal in 1861. In the 1920s, the Brits wanted to build a tube rail network in Kolkata. By then, the city had ceased to be the capital of the British Raj, but it remained an important trade hub. So Sir Harley came up with a plan. He wanted to build an underground railway line, featuring 10 stops and a tunnel below the Hooghly. But there were doubts about the idea. Many felt the plan was too ambitious. Ultimately, it was shot down. Sir Harley couldn't get the money he needed for the project. But his work stood the test of time. Experts say this underwater tunnel mirrors the one proposed by Sir Harley, but it took some Indian ingenuity to turn it into a reality.
Speaking of things going under, Turkey's economy is moving in the same direction. That's what years of Erdoğanomics can do. Tank your economy. The latest inflation numbers are out. Turkish consumer prices are up 67%. That's a shade over what experts predicted, 67%. Let's look at the sector-wise split. Education reported a 91% hike. If you were spending $10 in education last year, it has now doubled. You'll have to spend almost $20. Health expenses are up 81%. Transportation is up 78% and hospitality almost 95%. So every single thing is more expensive. And why is that? A major reason is the Turkish currency, the lira. It has lost 40% value in 1 year and 82% of its value in the last 5 years. So the lira is nosediving. And what is President Erdogan doing about it? Well, normally, inflation has a routine treatment. Your central bank increases the interest rate, it reduces money supply and brings down inflation. That's normal economics. But Erdogan had his own theories. He was against increasing interest rates. He thought it un Islamic. But after the presidential elections last year, he relented. From May 2023, Turkey's central bank announced 8 rate hikes. And wait for this, a total of 3,650 basis points, which is around 36%. Imagine that, a 36% increase in interest rates. But last month, the central bank made a U-turn. It said no more interest hikes. You see, Turkey is heading to the polls. Local elections are due on the 31st of March, and Erdogan's party has a point to prove. In 2019, he lost 2 major cities, Istanbul and Ankara. So this time, he wants to win them back. Hence the pause on rate hikes. But these latest inflation numbers will also raise questions. Clearly, it's not the time to pause. If anything, you need more rate hikes. But what about structural issues? Investors look at certain things before putting their money in a country, like how predictable is the policy making? Is the central bank independent? Is the rule of law upheld? Under Erdogan, the answer is no. So investors gradually fled Turkey. Just look at the numbers. Foreign investment in Turkey peaked in 2007. It was almost $22 billion. But last year, it was just 10.6 billion. That's a 51% drop in 17 years. You can't blame global sentiment for this fall. This is clearly Erdogan's fault. He has made Turkey uninvestable. What the country needs is orthodox economics, a rational and level-headed policy. But tell that to President Erdogan. He's more interested in big power politics. We saw that last year. Erdogan positioned himself between Russia and the US. He also opposed the expansion of NATO. Both moves had the same objective. He wanted to obtain concessions from the West. But when the time came, what did Erdogan ask for? F-16 fighter jets. It tells you what his priorities are. Last year, Turkey spent $16 billion on defense. Guess how much they will spend this year? $40 billion, a 150% jump in defense spending. What is Turkey doing with this money? Making jets and drones. One of them was showcased last month. A new 5th generation fighter jet. Only 3 countries have such advanced planes, the US, Russia and China. I guess Erdogan wanted to join that list. It's the same tendency that we spoke about. A penchant for big power politics. But the Turkish economy cannot bankroll it right now. And that is Erdogan's biggest fault. He has led Turkey into confusion, financial, political and religious confusion. The central bank does not know whether to increase or decrease interest rates. The people do not know whether they should be liberal or conservative. And the leaders do not know which camp Turkey belongs to, the Western, the anti-Western or the middle. It's a confusion that is hurting the Turkish people. Now let's turn our attention to Mozambique. It's a country in southeastern Africa, home to about 34 million people and also home to a terrorist insurgency. Mozambique's northern provinces are under attack from a group called Al-Shabaab. They're not affiliated with the Somalian group with the same name, but they do have ties to the Islamic State. This terror outfit, the Al-Shabaab in Mozambique, has been ramping up its activities. Over the last 2 months, it has displaced 100,000 people. 1 lakh people have been forced to flee their homes, and almost 60% of them are children. The terror group is also targeting these children, reportedly to capture them and turn them into child soldiers. Here's our report.
Mozambique is one of the least developed countries in the world. It was ranked 185 out of 191 countries in 2021. It's not the poorest nation in the world, but it falls behind on other development parameters. And this is despite a decent reserve of natural resources like natural gas. Gas fields have been found in northern Mozambique in the Cabo Delgado province. Energy companies have been trying to extract these resources for years. But there's a major hurdle. A terror group runs rampant in the Cabo Delgado province, a group called Al-Shabaab, the name given to the group by locals who believe they are evil.
The sounds of gunshots woke us up. They began to chase people. We watched as they cut off men's heads with machetes. We ran away with the little we had. Those terrorists are evil.
Look how groups of men arrived with firearms and machetes and came to burn the cars. We were terrified, and on February 20th we fled here. We've been here for a week and we have not eaten anything. All of us who have come here are suffering.
Those people were from Chiure, a district of Cabo Delgado that was once considered safe. That's no longer the case. Al-Shabaab have been ramping up their attacks everywhere in the province, and they've caused over 100,000 people to flee over the last few months. Almost 113,000 people fled their homes between the 22nd of December and the 3rd of March. Most of them left their homes last month after attacks in Chiure. Some travelled by buses or boats. Many fled on foot. They made their way to a small town called Namapa, and now they have to wait in long queues to get basic rations from the Mozambique government. The refugees say the conditions are dismal.
I'm from Chur. I fled on 20th February. We do not have anything to eat nor a place to sleep. We're suffering.
Over 100,000 have been rendered homeless. Most of them are children. About 61,500 have been left homeless because of the rise in terror attacks. And they are the lucky ones. New reports say dozens of children are missing. The fear is that they've been captured by the terrorists. Al-Shabaab has been known to use child soldiers, some as young as 12. Little girls are sometimes married off to their abductors. Despite this, Mozambique's government seems to be downplaying the threat. They refuse to declare an emergency. Perhaps this is to prevent energy companies from getting spooked. The firms had paused their projects back in 2021, the last time these attacks had escalated. Mozambique didn't want the investments frozen again, which is why the government is scrambling to find a long-term solution. At present, there's an international force to combat the insurgency, a force made up of troops from Rwanda and the Southern African Development Community, that's a regional grouping of nations. But that mission is due to end soon, which is why Mozambique is looking for other defense partners. And with that in mind, it has now enlisted the support of Algeria. Algeria has pledged to aid Mozambique. The details haven't been made public, but will it be enough to counter the Al-Shabaab? If it isn't, then Mozambique's people will continue to suffer while the terrorists run riot.
Our last story tonight is about a vast icy landscape, the Arctic, the northernmost region of the Earth, It is a floating pan of ice where polar bears feast. Reindeers and foxes roam, and waters teem with seals. Beneath the surface, more animals depend on the Arctic underside. Now, this is a delicate ecosystem and it needs the ice. But for decades now, the Arctic has been in a death spiral. The world is warming up, so is the Arctic, and the situation is much worse there. The Arctic is warming faster than almost anywhere else on the planet, at 2 or 3 times the global rate. Its ice has been melting rapidly since 1978. Now time is running out. The white Arctic is turning blue faster than expected. Now a new study is out. It says the Arctic will be completely ice-free in just about a decade. By 2035, the summer sea ice on the Arctic Ocean could disappear entirely, in which case the Arctic would be mostly water. Now, this is alarming on many levels. You see, the Arctic is a multi-dimensional space. Its surface, the area beneath it, the air above, the water around it, all of this serves a purpose. All of it depends on ice. So when the ice melts, all of it is affected. Animals will lose their homes, their habitats will melt away, and you know what comes next. We start losing the animals in large numbers. The harm extends to humans as well. Sea ice reduces the effect of ocean waves on coasts. Without the ice, waves will be stronger and bigger. They will cause more erosion. People living on the coast will suffer the most, but so will others the world over. When permafrost thaws, it releases 2 potent greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide and methane. This further heats up the planet at a faster pace. This will cause more extreme weather events, especially in North America, Europe and Asia. Remember the searing heat wave last year that left America and Europe sizzling? Or the catastrophic floods in Pakistan from the year before. Such events will increase in likelihood, and they will be much harsher. Plus, melting permafrost could unlock the next pandemic. Viruses and bacteria could reawaken, infect local wildlife and prompt a disease spillover. If you think this is too far-fetched, think again, because this has happened before. And this is only the tip of the iceberg, yet some are finding opportunities in this crisis. Because the Arctic region has abundant mineral deposits. It has oil and gas reserves. Melting ice means they're more accessible by ship, and countries want to take advantage of it. And speaking of taking advantage, of course, China is leading the pack. It is heavily investing in the Northern Sea route. It will go over the top of Russia and give China clear access to the Arctic. It will also boost maritime trade. Shipping time between China and Europe will go down by 15 days. Canadian and Scandinavian countries are interested as well. They're hoping for more shipping routes to open up. Meanwhile, the US is keen too. The region is contentious for America. Greenland has a wealth of gold, zinc, iron and uranium. In 2019, Donald Trump wanted to buy it from Denmark. And last year, the Biden administration approved a huge oil drilling project in Alaska, despite widespread opposition. So the Arctic is clearly enjoying political relevance, but not in the way one would hope. 90% of its melting is because of human-caused heating, because of fossil fuel emissions from oil, gas and coal, yet countries are busy finding a silver lining here. Instead of scrambling to save the ice, that's what they're doing. Sure, some progress has been made. Like last year, the COP28 climate summit was held in Dubai, and for the first time ever, nearly 200 nations and regions approved a global pact. They agreed to transition away from fossil fuels, to quit adding carbon dioxide to the atmosphere by mid-century. One can only hope that they stick to their promises, or the Arctic as we know it will soon be frozen only in memory. And now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. Southeast Asian leaders pat and feed koalas at the ASEAN summit in London. More than 100 artworks made out of over 1 million Lego bricks were displayed in a new exhibition. And in Pompeii, archaeologists discover a well-preserved fresco depicting scenes from Greek mythology. Finally, we are taking you back in history. On this day in 1964, American boxer Cassius Clay took the name Muhammad Ali. As a civil rights advocate, he rejected his birth name as a slave name. Ali is often regarded as the greatest boxer of all time. We're leaving you on that note. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
One minute in Kolkata.
Isn't it?